Good morning and welcome to Morning Coffee with Brigid. I'm Brigid Burke, and as you can see, it's a bit brighter, different view again, back to the original view of the room behind me rather than showing what's outside. Morning, Alex. And good morning, Joanne. Daylight savings time has ended, I guess. I guess that's technically what's happened. And so now the sun is up. I got to see the sunrise, which one of the things I love about fall and winter is that the sunrise is so much prettier than it is in summer. In summertime, it's like, because there's always this kind of fog or haze, like this humidity. It just doesn't, oh, hello, Sam. Good morning, afternoon. I think, we've caught up with the time change, so it's probably noon there again. So it's much brighter this morning, and I don't have to worry about, I'm glad Melissa reminded me of this, because I was going to switch it to 7:30, but then I'm like, no, we can wait. We can wait till we get closer to December to switch it to 7:30. So, 12 p.m. It's, that daylight savings thing. Or British summertime, as it's called in the UK. So today is like I said, I woke up. With the time change, it's always a little bit weird, because I woke up, and it's funny, I wake up every morning and I hurt all over when I wake up. This is kind of a normal thing for me. I wake up in pain just about every morning, and I kind of just drag myself through things until finally everything starts to feel better. And right now, like I said, I was worried that it was going to be one of those days where I had it's sort of a day off. I do have 4 more readings I have to record for my channel. I did 2 yesterday. But I don't know. Yesterday was, it's not that I had anything to accomplish. Yeah, you feel me? Yeah. I have 1 more room to clean too, and I gotta take, all the stuff out. But I've been trying to keep up with certain things. I know I have to do yard work before, because we haven't had any rain in a while. There's fires popping up everywhere. Certainly in areas, because people, on Samhain, I was in bed and I heard somebody shooting off fireworks. I'm like, there is severe fire warnings out because everything is so dry. And I literally, the words that I have in my head for the obvious intelligence or lack thereof of people who seem to feel that they should be setting off, something with a flame outside. Oh, good morning, Melissa. While we've got this really extreme, they call them red flag warnings. I don't know. Oh, they're celebrating bonfire night since Halloween Eve over here. Right, exactly. Because, Guy Fawkes is coming up in a couple of days, the 5th, right? That's the Guy Fawkes Day. And of course, with Samhain, there's also the bonfires. But here, we literally have warnings, no outdoor fires, nothing. They don't even want people cooking on, not that it's really the best time of year for it, but not even cooking on your grill outside. They don't want any, because we now have fires. Rockaway, which is right near where I went to high school years ago, all the woods there are on fire. Because somebody went and shot off fireworks, and a spark hit something, and everything is so dry, it's like tinder. It goes right up. Now for me, I'm like, this is the time to clean up the leaves, because when they get wet and heavy, then it's a bigger job, but, so I need to do that tomorrow. In the next couple of days. This is actually going to be a very busy week for me. I'm doing my seminar for the ISFM, on Hecate. I did the lecture last week on Hecate and Persephone, and I'm going to do, the seminar for that this week. And I have sort of been chatting to everybody informally, and it seems like people are starting to get their project ideas together and stuff, which is really cool. Because we've only got 1 more set of seminar this term, and I think it was Joanne had asked me about what next term's going to look like, and that is still something I'm sorting out. Who's going to be teaching, if we're going to bring on anybody else, because the 3 people who I have are great, but I don't know if there's another topic that they want to talk about, or if they want to expand on the one that they did, and I want to decide kind of what the theme is going to be for spring of 2025, so I'm working on that. Plus, I'm going to try to put these classes together. And I realized I have my friend's book to edit. And I was like, I've just totally, not blowing it off, but there's been so many other things that have been more immediate that I've not been able to get to that. So I'm like, I got to make her book a priority this week, because I know she has a deadline. And she, and when people are paying you to do it, then it's like, I have to make that a priority. So I've been doing a lot of catching up over the last few days. And, but this morning, I think what I wanted to talk about was Azrael again, because I had a very interesting message come through this morning, and not just about Azrael, but about, you're a busy lady. Yeah, I know. Oh yeah, and Melissa and I think I'll just say it again, that's right, we're going to be doing an event on December 1st, so that we're going to start planning for and marketing as well. So yeah, so if you're in New Jersey, or you know somebody in New Jersey who would like to come to this event, you can let them know that that's going on. So we're hammering out the details of that. So yeah, that'll be fun. I love working with Melissa. She's great. And so we've got all that stuff coming up, and yeah, it's very busy. And I think I was supposed to do a class this Saturday. I've got the makeup class this coming Friday, because the two people who are in my in-person into there's supposed to be all these people who want to take this class, and then when it was offered, it's just like only two of them showed up to actually do it. They couldn't make this past Saturday, so we're going to do a Friday afternoon class, and then I'm going to have a Saturday class. I'm going to have 2 days in a row, and I think I have a client on Saturday as well, and Sunday is like a day off with a friend of mine. You know, we're going to go out to lunch or hang out or whatever, because I haven't seen her in a while. And so that'll, so we're going to have all that going on. So yeah, busy week, probably from Wednesday forward, and then Monday, after Monday's live stream, I have a catch up with a friend in the UK. So, yeah, there's just a lot of things that I want to make sure that I don't lose track of them, over the week. Because it's very easy for me to do. Okay, so the messages I was getting this morning seem to be around, we're looking at a time right now, and again, it doesn't matter. I mean, maybe politically is the most obvious place we see it, but it's not the only place. Wow, it's nice of you. Most people don't accommodate like that. Oh, good morning, Pat. Oh, you're welcome. Well, yeah, I don't know. I have, I try to, yeah, well, that was it. Oh, I think with the class, I see what you're saying. Yes. Yeah, well, it was just, if nobody's going to show up, then there's no point in me showing up. You know what I mean? And since nobody else had registered, I just asked Corinna if we could just move the date for the people who could make it, because kind of like the one we did online, some people prepaid, they paid for all, this time I only did that one as an 8-week rather than a 10-week. But they prepaid for everything, so it's like, okay, if you've prepaid, then I try to accommodate. If I can't accommodate, then I will send like a recording, or I will do something, because if you've already paid for it, because Wix and the others, it's not really good at being able to give a refund for a part of something that you've paid the full amount. So that's why there always has to be kind of a plan B if a person can't make a day that they've scheduled. I mean, you could just say, oh, well, you've lost out, but I don't like to do that. So if there's something I can provide for the person, then that would be ideal. So, anyway, so let's talk a bit about what was coming up this morning. So I have, gosh, and I'm feeling it in my head right now. There was a very interesting set of words that started that they're words, they're angelic words I've seen before, but not in this order. It was kind of like, what was it? Roar Keoska Poilp, which is the sun and the earth are divided. Okay. And that seemed to be the theme of the readings that I did this morning. When I did a Morrigan reading, I had Odila, which is the rune of something is separated. Something is separated. You're at a gate, something is separated, and there was and she talks about an opening, kano, like a rune of opening, and the word that we have in angelic language is odo, which is an opening, and koma is like opening. Komo's opening a window. Okay, so there's a window opening, and Azrael talked about a period of 100 days, and I was kind of like, well, like coming to the end of a period of 100 days, and I said, okay, well, is that period something that's happening in, like, is that, like, are we starting the 100 days, or are we already in it? And he said, no, we're already in it, and remember all the stuff we talked about back at the Aquarius full moon in August, that was the day it started. And he referred to it as almost 100 applications, which I thought was a really weird way to say it. Like, he was applying. Like, in other words, something's being applied 100 times, and at the end of that 100 times, that's when you'll start to see this disunity start to dissolve. So, in other words, he said the sun and the earth are divided, and the words he used were mos and atharzi, which is if you want joy and peace, then there has to be this, basically those two things have to come together if you want joy and peace. and that's what's going to bring them. I'm trying to remember the other word he used this morning, but there was this idea that that we're seeing a lot of this imagery. Certainly, when it was Libra season, we were seeing the idea Libra 7th house, right? So it's the idea of that energy coming together. But there's definitely a sense of merging masculine and feminine. Now, I saw an interesting thing. I think I told Alex about this because we had a session the other day, and I'll tell you guys about it. You're going to think it's really funny. But those of you who are familiar with Discordianism or Erisianism, okay? The goddess of discord, Eris, okay, in Greek mythology, she is the one who throws the golden apple. She's not invited to the wedding feast of Peleus and Thetis, and so she's the only goddess not invited. So she's gets herself a little out of joint about that. So she decides to create some trouble, and she takes the golden apple, and it says Callisti engraved on it, which means to the fairest, and she chucks it in, and of course it was Athena, Hera, and Aphrodite all reach for it and say, "Oh, that's mine." There's a similar story of this in Celtic mythology among the three heroes, where Brigid, he has his feast, and he's a satirist, and they don't want him at the feast. He's like, "Okay, I'll just leave the feast and I'll go," but he sounds like me. Yeah, he leaves the thing. And he puts this feast up, and he tells them, the choicest portion is for the bravest of you. And so then they have to fight out who's the bravest, right? Good morning, Leela. So anyway, it was really funny because there was this. So in short, Eris is one who likes to create discord, and she knows kind of what pushes people's buttons. And I saw an interesting thing that showed up, and actually, weirdly, it's showing up like in particular. It's Eris is actually a planet, and we don't always see the influence of Eris, but Eris is because she's so kind of far out, one of those outer planets. Good morning, my homies. Hey, it's because it's kind of an outer planet. It doesn't often conjunct things in our chart. I mean, I think astrodianists, you can actually bring in Eris as an object. I think what this one astrologer was saying what happens is that as you get past, after Pluto, which some people, there was this big argument over whether Pluto was a planet or not. Good morning, Suda. They found a whole bunch of other planets. And now they've just stopped adding them. We had 7 planets, then we had 8, then we had 9, and they're like, there's just other stuff out there. They don't, but from an astrological perspective, the stuff does make a difference. So Eris is, she's showing up, given that we have an election going on, okay? She's showing up particularly in Trump's chart, and Eris has been square his Saturn. So there's a sense of authority, discordant kind of authority thing going on there. But right now, it's squaring his Venus. And that's the interesting thing, because it has to do with Eris is like the female warrior, and Venus, in his case, Venus is in his 10th house. So that's where the implication is for him, because the 10th house is his legacy. So Venus by herself is like, well, no, Venus, this is just like a double feminine shot. But they were saying that kind of just because of how it's fitting in with the big picture, that it's almost kind of showing the way in which there is this kind of tension between masculine and feminine that's kind of going on. It's going on personally in his chart, and it also, just because of the kind of things that are going on, it's affecting everything on a bigger scale. So, and it was so weird because I was having Eris synchronicities, and I was laughing. I was in the basement. I heard the water go on down there, and I was like, is that just the hot water tank? Because it was like, it was hot in the house. It was those hot days that we had last week. I was like, okay, the heat shouldn't be coming on. And I was pretty sure it was just the hot water tank filling, but I went down and I checked anyway. And as I went down there, and it turns out that's what it was. So I was just like, okay. And I had some stuff to get out of my dryer, and it was an aroma downstairs, and it smelled to me like hot dogs cooking. Okay, you're gonna find, if you know anything about Erisianism, this is kind of funny. And I'm like, I'm not cooking anything. Nobody outside is cooking anything. And I know there's other things smells you got to worry about. Like if anything smells like, rotten eggs, then you have to worry that, that you got a gas leak or something like that. But it wasn't like that. And that's a really odd, like something's cooking. So I was just like, all right, I don't know. And I went upstairs, and it was kind of a faint thing. And I'm like, but I just could not make out where this scent was coming from. And then when I was out shopping and I was getting my groceries for the week, because I don't normally eat hot dogs. That's not, I don't hate them, but they're not like a regular staple. They're more of a summertime thing, right? But for some reason, when I passed them, I was like, I'm going to get these. Like, for some reason, I feel like I need to partake of a hot dog. And what's hilarious is if you follow the Principia Discordia, that's just it. Eris is the goddess of chaos. And it's funny, if you read the Principia, I love that you grabbed the hot dogs. Yeah, Alex remembers this because I told her about it. So Erisianism, okay, if you're not familiar with what it is it a religion disguised as a joke, or a joke disguised as a religion? And it's basically these guys, and it's in the 60s, so they're probably ingesting some kind of substances when they're writing this stuff, but they have this like supposed vision of this like ape-like creature, probably an ape of Thoth kind of creature, that asks them all of these things. And they basically said, you have it all backwards. He's like, this world is not about order, it's about disorder, and you should celebrate the disorder and everything. So, and they always talk about the curse of Greyface, which is where we think everything's very serious, and life is sad, and it's drab, and everything is terrible and horrible, and, blah, blah. Like the Pastafarians. Kind of, yeah. Although Pastafarians, I think, are specifically kind of meant to, I think they're sort of there almost they're almost almost like the Satanic Temple. It's like they're a group of atheists that are there kind of making a point with something, like, yeah, I'm a Pastafarian, so I have this, that. Yeah, there's kind of an element of that. Discordianism is more, I don't know, it's really funny, but, and it's meant to be, the book, the Principia Discordia is hilarious. There are some things in there that some people might find a little like, it's unsettling, but it's like some jokes that are unsettling in there. But overall, it's just really hilarious, like example of this kind of 1960s zine type culture, right? And but it's just that Eris appears, and when her prophet, Malcalypse the Younger, he calls himself. He's like, this is all like Robert Anton Wilson and some of these people who were connected to who were writers at the time. Wilson's connected to the Illuminati trilogy and all of this stuff. And again, it's not to be conspiracy theories, but these guys were kind of really far out in their thinking, and they were both comical about it, and they were, but it also really opened up a lot of food for thought. So, Erisianism, yeah. So basically she's saying, well, that's because you people have it all wrong, And she was talking about how much the Greeks hated her, and she's like, well, they did suffer from indigestion. That was kind of what it says in the book. It's, again, yeah, but the whole idea was, that Eris brings chaos, and that chaos brings joy. Like, it's like, no, we should be joyful. We should not be like, you guys will have it all. You think everything, because you want order and everything, you think everything has to be serious. You think everything has to be, they call it the curse of Greyface. And of course, the antidote to the curse of Greyface is they would say, they said, this is a very, very powerful ritual that you do where you stand on one foot and jump up and down and gobble like a turkey. It's like just, the results will be immediate. So yeah, the idea is that, you're taking things way too seriously. But the one thing about Eris is she has her commandments to her followers, and anybody can be, by the way, anybody who follows her is automatically a pope, even if you don't follow her. So you can get your little pope card, this person is a pope, so you treat them right, good, proper, that's the POEE card, as they call it. So it's very much, but if you remember, if you're a Catholic, that on Fridays you don't eat meat, right, during Lent and things like that, you abstain from eating meat. So therefore, you joyously partake of a hot dog on Fridays. That's the Erisian thing, that she goes away and she joyously eats her hot dogs on Friday. So that's the joke right there. And so I was like, yeah, there's like this Eris thing coming in. And then the reason I mentioned the thing with the chart is because I just happened to see it. Yeah, it's something I was scanning through on YouTube, and it came up about Eris, and I was like, oh, I wonder what this is about Eris, and that's what it turned out to be about. But I was like, but it made me think. I was like, okay, well, maybe the connection there is that the problem that he's having in his chart is a disconnect between the masculine and the feminine. Or this kind of over-reliance on masculine energy. And we are moving into a space where literally everything is telling us that we're going into the feminine. And as I mentioned the other day when I was thinking about Mars and Cancer, they're thinking like, oh, Mars and Cancer, this is explosive emotions and violence and this and that. And I'm like, no, Mars and Cancer is very feminine. That's like mother energy, right? And this is like warrior mother energy, right? This is like, we're coming in and we're writing the balance. But as the thing says today, the sun and the earth are divided, and if you want joy and peace, then that has to be rectified. It's not about one making war on the other. It's about how do those two things get together, okay? And again, this is not new. I've talked about this on this live stream probably more than anybody cares to hear, but there's this idea that there is a unity that needs to occur. Didn't he catch flack for eating a hot dog instead of foo-foo food? I feel that concept within myself, yes. Possibly, I don't know. I haven't really paid attention to that. And then integration, yes. Because one of the first cards I got this morning was, I was using my own deck, which I brought my own deck out today. I used got the Rune of Antares card, and that is a card of, same thing, it's like temperance. It's a card of integration. How do we integrate things? So, but basically the implication is that we're going through this 100-day period, whether you're really, we're almost like the division's going to feel worse before it feels better. So, and it's weird because I just switched my calendar in November, and I had something marked about this weekend. Like I had sometimes when I when I do a reading and it gives me a timing and I think, okay, well, let's see if that timing actually is a real thing, or if it's just if I'm, or if the timing changed or whatever. Ooh, nice, your own deck. Yes, this is not a tarot deck. This is called the Antarian Oracle, and I created this deck when I was during COVID. Like I said, because I sat around in COVID, well, nothing else to do, I'll make a deck. But no, I was channeling a number of things at the time which were not connected to Azrael, but and I ended up making a deck out of that. But I have something for the weekend of the 23rd and the 24th of November, and that seems to be the time. Now, Alex says, I got a new tattoo of the sun specifically on my left arm on Friday after, bridging the gap with the feminine and masculine. Very cool. Yes, that's right. You were saying you had gotten some retouching work done. And yeah, there's this bridging that's going on. It's not about one conquering the other, not one being over another or in charge of another. It's that the two of them work together in harmony. That this is not an era where that's masculine dominated. It's where, and again, you don't want to throw the masculine away either, because masculine has to do with intellect and rationality and something. Yeah, together, right? It needs to be working in harmony with the feminine. So that came up in several different places this morning, which I thought was interesting. But the Eris thing I thought was hilarious with the hot dogs, because all of a sudden I was thinking about it when I was like, I haven't really thought about planet Eris. And then when I thought about it in the chart, I was like, oh, that's really funny, because, and I don't know whether or not that has to do with an omen for what's going on. I have no idea. I am really trying to stay the heck away from the election because I just don't want to be involved in it. Right now, because it's just the energy around it is, if you're empathic at all, it's mega, mega intense. And I'm like, yeah, okay, I just really don't, and it's annoying me because even though I've already voted, it's like I'm still getting all these text messages, and I'm like, get away from these text messages, I don't want to know. Just when you think she can't get any more cool, there she goes. It's so funny. Alex is infinitely cool. Tattoos are fun. They definitely are. And of course they're meaningful too. I mean, I think we all get them and we're, they all have a meaning to us, You're blushing. Yeah. Well, it's much better than, certainly much better energy than last week, right? I mean, it's definitely a, where everybody can recognize how cool you are. So it's, okay, so where was I? Okay, the other thing I wanted to mention is, because one of the things I'm working on lately is I'm working on another novel in the middle of all this, because that only seems to be what happens, like a story. The way I seem to connect with my guides, and I mean, I'm talking about the ones who really hang out, okay, and who are around all the time. And again, the main two that I have, at home in Jersey. Well, the two guides that I have, and I've had for years, Maka, who is a manifestation of the Morrigan, and it's interesting because her name means plain or field, so she literally represents the earth and the sovereignty of the earth. And then Azrael comes in later, and he is actually, well, I mean, he's a celestial being, really. So, and weirdly, there is kind of this sun-earth energy with me. I'm not saying that the two of them I think do work in harmony together, but they're not. I mean, but they're not a pairing, but they do, you know, she's kind of this representation of this earth energy, and he's kind of this representation of this celestial energy and the kind of change that's going on. And as I've mentioned, excuse me, they both have a personality, and eventually that personality starts to come out. So I have been, like I said, working, since Azrael has come into my sphere, like I said, for Maka, I have a ton of stuff written about her over the years. In fact, a lot of the novels, those of you who are following Catonia podcast, Catonia books, there's a whole lot there that I'm, a lot of those stories there, Morrigan timelines, Regenerator, Project Lethe, they're all based around the Maka character. Okay, now the character, we were talking a little about egregores yesterday and watchers and creating things, but I can say that when these energies have come in, and that's just it. I don't think these are energies that I've created, but when you write something in the literature, it adds something to the manifesting power of them in some way, or it causes them to, some aspect of them to manifest. It's almost a magical kind of a thing, right? And so a lot of what I've written about the character who I call Layla in those books is really a manifestation of the personality that I see in the Morrigan, in Maka. Different aspects, because she has different sides to her, and and when I look at it in the broader perspective, it seems to be almost like the conundrum of the feminine. Either a very dominating kind of feminine, or a kind of feminine that is that has no voice, or that has their voice sort of cut off. So there's kind of almost two sides to her that I usually see, and those get expressed in the novels, and they're different, taking almost a similar story but from different perspectives. If there were different outcomes, or we follow the stories of different people if this happened instead of that happened. Like that's a lot of what that novelization is. And perhaps this is at least one reason why I'm always kind of like, okay, well, we can work with these energies creatively. You can do things. Now, again, the fact that I write a story about the Morrigan doesn't mean that, oh, this reflects the true Irish history of the Morrigan. It doesn't. I mean, there are aspects of it that do reflect it, but it's not meant to be some kind of faithful retelling of the medieval whatever. Like, it's not meant to be that. Which I know annoys some people, and especially when you're talking about fantasy and sci-fi. I was watching a thing the other day, too, which I might share with people, about fantasy, about when there used to be weird tales and things like that, and the way in which now fantasy has to be written in a way that feels like it has to be realistic, like all the magic has to have a logic to it. There has to be a thing. But Weird Tales was just kind of, it's fantastic, like really fantasy in terms of being fantastic. It's like, you know, it didn't just have to be speculative in the sense of, could this really happen? It just trying to, we have this obsession with something having to be realistic in order for us to suspend our disbelief, which is kind of weird when you think about it. But Azrael has been emerging since, it's been almost a year since I've been working with Azrael, and he's emerging kind of as a personality, and I have a set of stories. Now, like I said, the Layla character is one thing. I have another set of characters, and one of them, I know that the name I think is technically Aiden, but I only say Aiden. Now, you know, I don't know, but it's, and I get that from Aidenus or Aidenus, which is the name for Hades, and I realize Aiden is kind of an Irish name also, but I'm thinking of it more in terms of the Greek name. And this character has started out as one thing, but since encountering Azrael, it's like Azrael has kind of co-opted this character from me in a certain way, and almost through this and through what I'm kind of being inspired to write, it's like, okay, his personality is also starting to emerge, and it is a personality. I mean, it's you could say, okay, well, in the celestial realm, does he have that kind of a personality? Well, according to him, yes. That there's just, but when they interact with people on the earth plane, when the angels interact with us, it's weird. Because this character that's emerging that is really showcasing Azrael's personality is one that is, it's weird because it's almost like, because he's there's something kind of gothic about him, as you might imagine. He's not, I mean, not the white makeup and black hair kind of a thing. Although the way Azrael presents himself to me, he does have very dark hair, actually kind of almost more golden type skin, but he has golden eyes too. And this character, I mean, looks like a regular person. Actually, he's got brown hair, like brown curly hair, like very long. I don't know why. I don't know. I guess because, for me, I just gravitate towards guys with longer hair, and none of my male characters seem to have short hair. But in any case, that might just be me. So anyway, he has this kind of long hair, but he does have these kind of golden eyes, and his character is almost like one that has almost like, he always wears glasses, but it's always like he wears tinted lenses, so you can't really, but they're the small ones. Almost kind of like, you almost have that Gary Oldman and Dracula vibe, like the little glasses that he would wear. But he dresses kind of, I mean, somewhat normally, but mainly in dark colors, which is why I think goth, he tends to wear black more in these images. But the way that he speaks is very interesting because because first of all, emotionally, he's actually very emotional, but he doesn't really, it doesn't really show on his face. It'll show in his eyes sometimes, or in his, like the way his eyebrows might go up, or a certain expression. But when I see this character, he's just like, he has a heart. Like he gets very concerned, but he's just very, I don't even want to use the word stoic exactly. It's kind of like that. But he's almost very, and his manners are almost very, I was going to say Victorian, but they might even be something even, I don't know, something very aristocratic and very formal in the way that he talks. But that doesn't fit with this image of this guy. It's kind of like interesting. And I know that when I've had certain communications, like in dreams with Azrael before, he uses words and stuff. You're like, where'd you get that word from? Nobody's used that word since the 1830s or something. He has this really old-fashioned way of speaking, which is really developing a really kind of an interesting character. And he encounters another female character in the story. Again, I don't write stories about me. I write stories about other characters. I don't know. I feel like the need to create that as a different thing, not as some kind of manifestation of my life or what I'm doing. But you have another character as like a reflection point for them, as a projection point. So it's just really interesting that he is kind of showing up. And I don't know if this is a common thing with regard to the angelic realm, being he's the one that I mainly communicate with, but it's almost like you ever hear those stories about, I watch some of these channels where, again, I'm not big into the UFO stuff, but you will hear about beings that come from another world and they're like trying to talk like regular people, and their dress is weird. It's like their approximation of what they think things should look like. I'm almost getting a certain, I don't think it's quite that severe with him, but there's almost a little bit of a vibe of that. Like he only knows kind of this like proper like late 18th century, 19th century way of talking, which is why I think sometimes, I mean, and he does use the angelic language when we talk, but he's also somebody who, I don't know, there's just something, it's really hard to put your finger on, but it's like if he was a person that you actually met in the street, okay, you would talk to him and be like, okay, he seems like a mysterious kind of normal, very attractive kind of a guy, but at the same time, there's going to be something that's kind of off. Sam's saying time traveler, maybe, been there, done that type of vibe. Maybe. I mean, yes, because you're right. Some of these stories are time traveler kind of stories, but I almost feel like, like he's come out of a different era, or he's not really from here, and he's kind of piecing together what he thinks it might be like. You know what I mean? I saw, there's one actor, I forget who it was. He's a very famous actor. I think he was in The Sopranos, or his father was. I like it. Yeah. I think you would like this character, Pat, actually. And I forget who the actor was, but he had recounted an incident about where he had walked into it was back in like the 80s, like he was going to get cigarettes or something. And there were these people in there, and they were dressed so weirdly. It's like they had 60s go-go boots with like 1920s like furs on and stuff. And the way that they were talking was just really, really odd. They were going in to buy cigars or something, and I don't know. It was a very, he describes this encounter. There's this channel called Beyond Creepy. I know it's a funny name for a channel. But this guy does look at UFO files, and it was, sometimes you will hear that, but he said he wasn't sure that they're necessarily aliens, but they seem to come out of another dimension or another space, and they, since this is not their space, they're kind of like trying to figure out like timeline jumpers. Yeah, timeline jumpers to a degree. But typically when you talk about a timeline jump, it seems like they say there's like a 1 to 2% difference in something. It's more like they're coming out of another space entirely, like another universe entirely, or another place of being, and it's their impression of what they see is going on here, you know? Lost skeletons, a cadaver. When he tells your alien wife to sit down, he says, "Fold yourself in the middle." Oh, okay. I don't think I've read or seen that before, but that's funny. Yeah, like that's how are you supposed to behave? So sometimes there's a certain, I want to say he's not quite that extreme with it, but there's enough there that I feel like, it's been interesting writing this character because it's like I mean, you can tell he's somebody who's not, and there's something about him that I think, under the circumstances, if you met him, you might even be a little distrustful of like, well, who is this guy and what's he about, you know? Because there's something, because he's clearly somebody who wants to be helpful, but you don't know if he's helpful in a way that's, because it's clear that he's like trying to imitate almost what it's like to be a person. Ooh, the woodpecker's outside again. Yeah, I've had a whole slew of wildlife go by this morning. And either way, there's 2 foxes outside, not just one. But yeah, so kind of funny with him, the way in which Azrael is behaving, you know. So as his personality emerges, I mean, it's a likable personality. It's not like, you know, like, oh God, he's weird, stay away from me kind of thing. It doesn't go as far as being quite uncanny, because when something's uncanny, it's like, it's trying to imitate being human, and it repels us. It makes us go, oh God, there's something not right about this person. I can only just imagine in Kaido Man Low, showing my age here. Yeah, right? I hadn't even thought about that. But yeah, there's just something interesting. I keep thinking he's reserved. Yes, he is definitely reserved. He kind of has this vibe of, it's like, even if he's concerned about something, you don't often see like a smile, or you don't often see, it's just a very kind of expression all of the time. But it's more like if you could look into his eyes, or you could see it, like I said, it might be, like my eyebrows are all covered by my bangs right now, but like you'll see an eyebrow go up, or you'll see like maybe someone can furrow their brow, like you'll see that kind of expression in his face, but otherwise he's just kind of expressionless. But it's not like he's exactly cold either. It's hard to explain, but anyway, I've been trying to write this kind of a character, so yeah, it's been a bit of my challenge lately. Or Angel from Buffy. Maybe. Yeah, there's just something, yeah, there's something mysterious, kind of uncanny. Some people don't trust it. And he is somebody, he's elusive. Yeah, he doesn't, and because of what he is and what he does, what he tends to represent, I mean, if you were to say to somebody, oh yeah, here's Azrael and he represents the angel of death, represent that, people will be like, yeah, get him away, you know, I don't want anything to do with him. Like, you know, he's bad, dangerous, stay away. But he's like, well, no, I'm not that. He's like, actually, I care about things very, very deeply. But because he's trying to interact in a way that's meaningful, sometimes it comes across as just kind of very odd and almost a little archaic. So anyway, I felt like I needed to share that. But okay, our central card for today, doing our reading, is the friendliness card. So again, remember what I just said about masculine and feminine coming together, right? This is us connecting. This is us coming together. And so again, inside though, we are still kind of very stuck in the mind. This is about being kind of stuck where we are, not being able to, not really seeing what the way forward is, right? This is a card of guilt. So when guilt comes in, it's sort of like, okay, what, I feel more like the Eight of Swords is a card of when we get tied up in the mind. And that to me is like an overbalancing of the masculine. There's Or like I said with Eris, kind of the curse of gray-faced. You know, we think everything is serious and everything is terrible and everything's horrible, and you know, and we're doing it wrong, and it's hopeless, and you know, I'm never going to be able to make anything of this kind of thing. Like we get ourselves stuck in these places. But the external feeling of which we're aware is the playfulness card. This is the Page of Wands. And it's funny, Page of Wands came from one of my readings. I love those books. Death rides a pale horse with death name is Mort, and he has an apprentice and drives a sports car. Yeah, there's where you can bring these characters in and make them into real characters. And interestingly, like when you meet death in a lot of, like even in stories like that, it's like death does not come across as, I mean, obviously people who don't, you know, doesn't always kind of comes across as this gentlemanly kind of character in a way. I mean, you know, not, or I don't know. There's just something about him that almost is like he's aristocratic almost in his own space, but he feels weird in this space. You know what I mean? So, yeah. So playfulness is what we are moving towards, and there's that Erisian thing I'm talking about, right? Eris. You know, guilt versus play, you know, moving into that space of playfulness. So once again, there's this is Ace of Wands, source. We've been talking lately about how creativity comes from source, letting things go through, you know? And our outcome card is interesting. It's the projections card, okay? Seven of Cups. Now, Seven of Cups typically is a card that comes up when we don't know what's real and what's not real, right? This is when we're not really sure what's coming and what's going, right? But I think what this is saying is that using a projection for source, and this is kind of why I'm tying this together with the Eris stuff today. It's almost like being able to project the ideas that are coming in outwards, like being able to play with them instead of getting stuck in our mind about how something is supposed to be, what's right, what's acceptable, what are we doing? You know, what are we doing with the way that, if you ever tried, those of you who are actually working on creative projects, and I think I've had some conversations about this, if you spend all of your time thinking like, oh, okay, I have to do a thing, and it has to be like this, and when you start adding all these limitations and conditions to it right off the bat, then it's almost like it's already, like you stifled it, like you're suffocating it. It doesn't, there's no play there. You're not allowing it to kind of pass through you. So sometimes it's good to actually have a projection point, to have something, whether it be a character, whether it be, like I said, in my case, I'm talking about a character. It doesn't have to be. But there's some person or situation or something that you can use as kind of a way to bounce off, or to just, like if you think of source as something that's coming, let's just say from your head or behind your head or above your head, it's not something you can directly see. So sometimes you can only directly see it when it's like in a mirror, like when you see it through somebody else or see it through an interaction with somebody else. That can also have to do with this as well. If Jung talks about the idea of individuation, which we've talked about, which is kind of his idea of integration, he talks about the idea of syzygy, which is a Gnostic idea of the masculine and feminine merging and coming together, or the aeons pairing or coming together. Good morning. So when these come together, there's the kind of the point is that you project things off of each other, masculine and feminine. If somebody is more in their nature, and again, it doesn't matter whether the person's man, woman, you know, or how they identify, it's a question of whatever the feminine is in you. If that's the weaker part, then by looking at the partner or having this kind of projection point, you have a way of strengthening your own inner feminine. Similarly, if somebody's very weak on the masculine side, they have another person who's that projection point that can help them develop that. Like the idea of individuation is that through relationship, we're able to become whole people. We're able to develop both sides of ourselves. Okay, so that's what I think we're talking about here. And if the projection is not actually onto a partner, this projection may be just onto our work. You know, and for me, I think that's what I'm doing. I'm doing it with characters. But you can also do it in relationship. And I think there's going to be more of that. So it's like saying, yeah, learning to integrate by the way in which we learn from each other, and way in which we're able to see ideas in other people or in other characters. So yeah, and being able to use that as a means of developing that within ourselves. Like if we feel we're very, I mean, some of us have talked here in client work and stuff about how, oh, I feel like like we have a very masculine dominated personality, even if we're women. And if it's like developing the feminine, and it's like, well, if I'm not a person who's going to be what a lot of people expect or think that feminine is supposed to be, I think that's why a lot of us are working on developing intuition and things like that, because it's not about being whatever someone's definition is of girly or helpless, or, you know, like which seems to be a lot of the stereotype of what we think of as feminine. Feminine's a lot more than that, and again, it has to do with the way in which we trust ourselves and not let our minds override everything all the time. I mean, the mind has a place. There's things you want to analyze and figure out and get the practical bits of, but you don't want it to override your whole being. And sometimes we need to be working with somebody maybe who is good at that, maybe who's very different from us, for us to be able to look at it and say, okay, or you need to write characters that are maybe different, or, you know, paint pictures of somebody's race, whatever it is, whether it be through an actual relationship or whether it be creativity. You can even do it with friends too. It could be people with very different personalities, and the more you get to kind of know each other, you know, they may teach you something about yourself that you haven't developed, or maybe show you a way that you haven't seen. So I hope a lot of that makes sense. Joanne says here, I guess The Apprentice because he's tired of being death and wants a vacation. That's funny. Yeah, I can completely, yeah, I could see where that would be a tiring job after a while. Okay, so I'm just going to do one more quick reading. I know we're kind of at time, but I'm going to do a quick reading with my own deck because I have it out, so why not? And actually, I had to bring the my own interpretations. I wrote all the interpretations for these cards, but I only use this deck very occasionally. So, yeah. So I don't always. Sometimes the meanings of the cards, I have to remind myself what they are. Oh wow. Okay. So our first card, time is an illusion. Well, yes. I mean, that's a whole other subject, but yes. Okay, so we're starting with the Vortex card. Vortex, this is card 10, and it always, in my mind, I'm reminded that it's very much like the Wheel of Fortune. And I will tell you what it says. I'm going to actually just read it to you from my little book here. It says, a swirling vortex hangs over a mountain range. Keep yourself grounded as you move through inevitable change. To avoid getting dizzy, put yourself in the center, in the place of quiet. Regular meditation helps you do this. From there, you can hear your inner voice and find direction. And again, it's very similar. It's not a Wheel of Fortune card, but it's very similar. So, yes. So, Vortex, right. So, the main thing is how we are negotiating change. And if we think about it as being like a Wheel of Fortune is change that is inevitable. You know, it's like, it's not change that we have any control over. It's just what's happening. And the point of interest here is the Tree of Life card. Now, Tree of Life is interesting because this has to do with diversity. Okay? Again, it's really interesting. The violet tree is surrounded by all colors of the rainbow. The more you get in touch with intuitive knowing, the more you will connect with life itself and see it in all dimensions. Connecting to nature, again, mindfulness, consider the point of views of others, get outside yourself. And then I have, on the next page, sorry, I've got these. Life should not be lived unconsciously. So it's a matter of, right, how we are expanding our horizons, how we're getting to know the other side of things, which completely makes sense. Now, our factor to be considered here is we have the Alien Sunset card, okay? And the meaning of this card is, let me find it, not really a sunset, as it's a view from a star itself. I can't begin to explain how direct this reading is with what I'm writing on my last free assignment for school. Oh my God. There you go. There's that connection we've got again here. Okay, not really a sunset, as this view is from the star itself. It reminds us that illumination comes from within. We already have the tools to craft a life for ourselves and to realize our dreams. Other forms of learning are helpful, but true knowledge comes from within, and through experience, learn to trust yourself. Okay, so this is a matter of incorporating experience as well, our own experience, and recognizing, yeah, that there's not necessarily that big distinction between inner and outer. Our response to other people has to do with our responses to ourselves. And then we have the Graveyard card, number 14. And that is, okay, so that's the advice. Take some time to appreciate the beauty of death. Isn't that funny? and of loss. If things did not move and change, everything would stagnate and go stale. We have a hard time letting go of the past, but sometimes we don't need to do that. Put your past experiences and losses in the correct perspective and move forward with gratitude. There's a blue planet in this card, which is like Uranus or Neptune, which represents the unexpected and the unreal, two qualities of death. And it's actually, I'm listing this as the transit between Capricorn and Aquarius, which is really funny. That's what I called it like 4 years ago. Yeah, so in other words, we need to appreciate what needs to be kept, what needs to be gotten rid of, right? And our outcome card is what I call the Rover, okay? And I love that card because that is like the world card. It's the culmination of the deck, and it's my last card, so I know that. It's card 28. Okay, I guess I have 28 cards in here. Okay. Says, a woman stands on a mountaintop in an attitude of joy. You've crossed the rugged terrain and can feel the song of the universe. Your past, present, and future all begin to flow together, and you see the pattern of things. Enjoy the moment and listen to the music of your soul. Yeah, so that's the outcome card. So, right, so as this integration process leads to joy. Okay, and that word comes up a lot, moz, in the angelic language, joy, and etharzi, which is peace. So, interesting. We are definitely being called to go out of our bubbles and out of our comfort zones and to look at things differently, look at people and situations differently, to look at the big picture. And again, this is really manifesting on a broad scale on this integration of masculine and feminine that's been going on. So it's not so much that we've got two that are making war on each other. It's more about how do we find a way to bring those things together, okay? And how are we going to do that? And, there's always going to be, we live in a world where, it's not always going to be, nothing's ever going to always go smoothly with everything. There's always going to be people who resist that energy, who don't want to change. But it will flow in spite of that, in spite of the fact, because humans are humans. And at some point, we need to accept that all of that is not going to be perfect all the time. Because again, that's about control. That's about saying everything has to be exactly a certain way and everybody has to behave exactly a certain way. But that's not how things work. So it's a matter of how do you flow with what's going on? How do you integrate yourself and be able to look at it kind of with fresh eyes? So anyway, we're way past time here. So thank you guys so much for joining me today. I hope you have a great Sunday. I will see some of you Wednesday night. And of course, if you come back in the morning for the live stream, you'll be here. So I hope you guys have a great day. Thank you. Amazing as always. Have a beautiful day. Thank you. Yep. You're welcome. And thank you guys for being here. And thank you. And, so we'll see you again. Love you all. See you soon. Take care.